Ever find yourself clicking through a software update and thinking, wow, that was surprisingly smooth? Or maybe you've noticed a business process that used to be a real pain, suddenly working way better.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, today, we're diving deep into the role behind those seamless changes. A role that doesn't always get the spotlight, but is absolutely crucial. The analyst.
Right.
Or, more formally, the business analyst. Now, I know what you might be thinking, analyst. That sounds pretty dry, but trust me, this is anything but boring.
Oh, yeah. Far from it.
So what exactly does a business analyst do?
At its core, a business analyst is someone who examines a business process that's about to change, and they meticulously document how that change will work from a business standpoint.
Okay, so they're the ones making sure everyone is on the same page before the tech teams start building anything.
Precisely. And it's not just about the technology itself, it's about understanding the flow of information, how data moves through the system, and crucially, the interaction between people and systems.
I see, so they're kind of like the bridge between the business side and the tech side.
Exactly. They ensure that the technical solutions actually meet the real needs of the business.
Why is this so important for our listeners?
It's vital because without that clear understanding of what the business needs, you end up with systems that don't quite hit the mark.
Right, they might be technically sound, but they don't actually solve the business problems.
Or even worse, they introduce new complexities. The business analyst is there to prevent that from happening.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's say a company is thinking about upgrading their customer relationship management software. The business analyst is the one who figures out what that upgrade needs to achieve for the customer service team.
Precisely. And ultimately for you as the customer.
Got it. So they're not just thinking about the technology, they're thinking about the people who are going to use it.
Exactly. Think of them as the architect who designs how a home renovation will work for the family living there before the construction crew even starts.
Oh, I like that analogy.
They determine where the walls need to be positioned, where the new appliances will fit seamlessly, and how the family will navigate the transformed space.
Makes the whole thing much easier to visualize. So the mission of this deep dive today is to give you a really solid understanding of what a business analyst does and why they're so important, especially when businesses are looking to grow and adapt.
Right.
We have some great source material today that really breaks down the typical journey of a business analyst. So where does this journey typically begin?
Well, it all starts with understanding the current state of affairs. The business analyst will listen, learn, and document exactly how things are currently working.
So they're kind of creating a detailed map of the existing terrain.
Exactly. They need to understand every step involved, the data that's handled, and who is responsible for each action.
But they're not just passively recording information, are they?
No, not at all. They're also looking for pitfalls and challenges in the current operation.
So they're like detectives looking for weaknesses or inefficiencies.
Precisely. They ask questions like, where are the bottlenecks? What are the recurring pain points? What processes aren't working as smoothly as they could be?
I see, so they're identifying areas for improvement.
Exactly. And sometimes a fresh perspective from an outsider can reveal problems that people working within the system have just become accustomed to.
That's a great point. So they've got a grasp of the present situation and its shortcomings. What happens next?
Well, then they move on to documenting the scope of the future changes.
Meaning?
What new areas or functionalities does the business want to implement? What are the goals of this change? What new capabilities are needed to achieve those goals?
So they're figuring out the what of the desired future state.
Yes, and that leads to the next crucial stage, preparing the requirements documentation.
What does that involve?
This is where all the information they've gathered, the details of the current processes, the identified challenges, and the desired future scope is compiled into comprehensive documents. These documents serve as the guide for the entire development process, ensuring that everyone involved has a shared understanding of what needs to be built or improved.
So it's like a blueprint for the project.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about the core stages, understanding the present, identifying the pain points, defining the future, and then documenting it all.
Right.
To make this more concrete, let's look at a real-world example.
Okay, love a good example.
Our source uses the scenario of a family-run vehicle hire business.
Well, that's relatable.
They've been successful in their local area, but now they're expanding to a new city, and they're encountering some scaling issues.
A classic growth problem.
Exactly. So let's think about some of the key areas the business analyst would need to examine. First, customer details.
Okay, so what information do they collect from customers?
Things like name, customer type, personal or business contact details like phone numbers and address, and of course the existing customer reference ID if they're a returning customer.
Right, and they need to make sure the new system can handle all this information seamlessly, especially as the customer base grows.
Absolutely. Then there's the critical aspect of vehicle tracking.
For a vehicle hire company, their vehicles are their lifeblood.
Exactly. The analyst needs to understand how they currently keep track of their assets. Is a vehicle currently hired out? Is it available? Is it under repair?
It's like inventory management, but for cars.
Precisely. And this leads us to workflow analysis. The analyst would map out the entire journey of a vehicle from depot to customer and back.
Okay, let's break that down.
So a vehicle starts in the state of available for hire.
Then what?
The next stage is when it's hired to customer.
Simple enough.
But the analyst would also document all the additional data that needs to be captured at this point. Who rented the vehicle? For how long? What's the total cost?
All crucial information.
Exactly. And then when the customer returns the vehicle, there's an inspection process. The analyst would detail what gets checked, who performs the inspection, and the possible outcomes. If there are no issues, the vehicle goes back to available for hire.
What if there are issues?
Then it enters a repair or remediation process. The analyst would document how repairs are requested, authorized, who handles them, how the vehicle status is updated, and how it eventually gets back to available for hire.
And I imagine there's also the possibility that a vehicle is damaged beyond repair or just reaches the end of its useful life.
Absolutely. The analyst would consider the possibility of a scrap or sell stage. They need to think through all the potential paths. And here's where it gets interesting. While this workflow might accurately reflect what the business does now, the analyst also needs to anticipate future needs.
As they expand to a new city.
Exactly. They might need to consider things like intercity vehicle transfers, something their current system might not be equipped to handle.
So they're not just solving today's problems, they're thinking ahead.
Precisely. And speaking of who will be interacting with this new system, that brings us to stakeholders.
Who are stakeholders exactly?
Stakeholders are all the individuals or groups who will use or be affected by the system.
In our vehicle hire example, who would those be?
You'd have the reception staff who interact with customers, the maintenance staff who handle the vehicles, the finance team who manage billing, and potentially even the customers themselves if there's a customer-facing app.
Right, so a whole ecosystem of users, each with their own needs and interactions with the system.
Exactly. And to visualize these interactions, the analyst might use tools like swim lane diagrams.
Swim lane diagrams, what are those?
They're visual representations of a process showing different lanes for each stakeholder and how the process flows between them. It helps to see who does what and when and identify any potential bottlenecks.
Sounds useful.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered understanding the current operations, defining the future state, and identifying stakeholders. How does the analyst make sure the project stays focused and doesn't get out of control?
That's where defining the project scope comes in.
This is where the analyst draws a line in the sand.
Exactly. They clearly articulate what is included in the project and what is excluded.
Why is that so important?
Because projects without a well-defined scope are prone to something called scope creep.
Scope creep? That doesn't sound good.
It's not. It's when more and more features or requirements get added to the project over time, often without proper planning or approval.
So the project starts to balloon out of control.
Exactly. It can lead to missed deadlines, budget overruns, and a less effective final product.
So the analyst is like a gatekeeper, making sure the project stays on track.
Yes, in a sense. They document any new ideas or requests on a future work list, keeping the core project team focused on the essential requirements.
That makes sense. So once all this information is gathered and the scope is defined, what's next?
The analyst puts together a comprehensive project plan.
Which includes?
Several key documents. First, an executive summary, which gives a high-level overview of the project.
Like an elevator pitch for the project.
Exactly. Then you have the project objectives, which are the specific business goals the project aims to achieve.
And these objectives need to be?
SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-specific.
SMART goals. I've heard of that.
It ensures that the goals are clearly defined, trackable, and realistic.
What else goes into planning?
The project scope document itself, which goes into more detail outlining deliverables, timelines, stakeholders, budget requirements, and the project team.
Sounds comprehensive.
It is. You also have the business requirements document, which lists all the actions, features, and functionalities needed for the project to succeed.
I see.
And these requirements are often prioritized. Then there's the stakeholder list outlining who they are and their roles and responsibilities.
Making sure everyone knows what's expected of them.
Exactly. And then you document any project constraints like dependencies, risks, budget limits, and deadlines.
Right, those pesky real-world limitations.
And finally, you often need a cost-benefit analysis or ROI analysis.
To justify the project's cost.
Precisely. It shows the potential returns and added value for the business.
It sounds like business analysts are in high demand.
Oh, absolutely. They are highly sought after, not just in IT, but across various sectors. Finance, healthcare, education, manufacturing, consulting, government.
Wow, quite a range.
And the demand is only expected to grow.
So what skills do you need to be a successful business analyst?
Well, you need strong analytical skills, problem-solving skills, communication skills, both written and verbal, an understanding of business and IT processes, the ability to investigate and interpret data, strong interpersonal skills, and of course, excellent time management skills.
Quite the skill set.
It is. So how do you become a business analyst?
Yeah, how do you break into this field?
There are short online courses and more in-depth university degree programs.
So there are multiple pathways.
But our source emphasizes the importance of practical experience through internships, work placements, or shadowing experienced professionals.
That real-world experience is key.
It is. And even with the rise of AI and automation, the demand for business analysts who can bridge the gap between technology and human needs is likely to increase.
That's a really interesting point.
Someone needs to understand the complexities of business operations and translate them into requirements for increasingly sophisticated technological solutions.
So the human element is still crucial.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of the business analyst.
It's clear that they play a vital role in successful organizational change.
They're the ones who make sure that business needs are understood and translated into actionable plans.
So the next time you encounter a new app, a streamlined service, or a more efficient process at work, take a moment to appreciate the work of the business analyst behind the scenes.
Yeah, they're the ones who make it all happen.
So to leave you with a final thought, as AI and automation become more prevalent, how do you think the role of the business analyst will evolve? What new skills will they need to master?
It's definitely something to think about.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.